Hey, good evening. I don't know if you remember, but I mentioned a few lives ago about how I noticed that concepts just tend to show up in like all areas of my life, right? So whether it's with my coaching clients, whether it's with my mentees, whether it's with the coaches that I am captaining, or surrounded by mentors in all these different spaces and in conversations even often these common themes will show up everywhere. And I always sort of take that as like a sign of, this is a great thing to lean into and talk about because if it's showing up in all these spaces and places, it's probably something that could be also showing up for you. So it's this concept around be, do, have. I got to speak earlier at the Fearless Women's Summit. And, it's a lot of the question around the being piece, right? Especially when I talk about bold. Actually, sorry, I think it was, sorry, the Fearless Female Bold Summit. And, if you are familiar with my brand, with my coaching about being an irresistible, bold leader, bold is defined as being, right? It starts with the being outrageously loving and daring. And there's so much more to unpack there, but it goes back to the being piece, the being piece, the bold piece. And here's the thing, like I get when you hear being, it's probably like, what are you talking about? This is not something that we are really talked about or trained about, right? When we think about schooling, we think about it's like results and we need to perform, right? And so I guess you could say performance is like a way of being, but in my experience, and if we look around, a lot of times this whole performance piece creates burnout. This whole performance piece doesn't necessarily equate to happiness or success. We think it does because that's what we've been programmed into, right? So now looking at the brain and the neuroscience, but performance doesn't necessarily equate to success. It's what we think it is, but it may not actually create the results. And again, for maybe it might not be the case, but generally speaking, that's my experience with this, right? So then we enter leadership, right? We start to do this personal development and we start to really unpack, what's not working for us? What is working for us? What's contributing to the burnout? What's contributing to the unhappiness? Like, what is contributing to the reasons why we are even in a place of personal development in the first place, right? Obviously we're there because we want to level up, right? We want to level up, we want to improve because there's something that is not in line with the vision or what we want to experience, or we love to take ourselves on, we love to level up, we love to really get the most out of life and experiences, right? And through all the work in and the discovery and the unpacking, and this is why it's the beginning of the whole bold piece, is that beingness is, it can be a bit of like it can be a bit of a concept to unpack, especially since it's not something that we're necessarily taught in schools, right? And so I wanted to come in here and unpack it for you this evening to support you in, okay, when you hear, because I know I probably mention that a lot when I'm talking, and if you are around a lot of individuals that do a lot of personal development, you probably hear that. And so I want to unpack it for you. So, what is the be do you have, right? A lot of times in society, we're really programmed to, if we do something, we're going to have something and then we're going to be happy, right? Be successful, be all those things. But this really turns it on its head. And I am often talking about like building a life by backwards and building a life and business by backwards by design, because it really starts with the end in mind, right? It's really about getting clear on what is that end in mind. So when you think about the be do have, thinking about the have, what is the result? What is the have piece at the end of the rainbow, at the end of the tunnel that you're looking for, or what's important to you right now in your life, right? So okay, that's the result, right? That's what I'm looking at, having, experiencing, feeling, whatever it is, right? That's the end result. All right. So in order to get that, right, I get to do something, right? To create that, whether it is setting the intention, whether it is, taking action, having conversations, making decisions. Like there's something that you get to do in order to create that result. Now, many of us go into the mechanics, we go into what do I need to do to create the result that we're looking for. And this is where I'm inviting you to lean into going one step further when you are looking at whatever it is that you want, and look at the being. Because here's the I guess you could say it was the secret to being able to achieve the result that you want without burning yourself in the process. Yes, you've got all the neurohacking part, and the beingness comes as part of it, right? Again, bold, right? Being outrageously loving and daring, right? So the action piece comes after the being piece, the identity, who you are, your values, what's important to you, how you show up, all of the beingness, right? So again, let's look at result that you want. Let's look at what you get to do to create the result. And who do you get to be? How do you get to show up to take the action to create the result that you want? So, pardon me, before going live, I was thinking about an example. And I was thinking about sometimes the easiest examples for me to come up with lately is, parenthood, right? Motherhood, because the reality is there is no manual to parenthood. And Mike's, two different daughters, and they are completely different. And so my way of being is going to shift based on my kids because they're two different individuals to get the result I'm looking for, right? So let's say I'm trying to think. Here we go. Okay, so my result was to get Abby's assistance this evening. And so my result was what I wanted to have was some help with cleaning up, right? So, okay, that was the result I wanted. So, what did I have to do? Well, I obviously needed to ask her, right? I got to ask her to help me clean up, right, which is right seems pretty simple. Well, I'm just going to ask to get help. But here's where the beingness comes in, because this is where I get to really ground myself in how I get to be, to make the ask for her to create the result that I'm going to get the help, right? So when I look at the beingness, one, I get to be connected with her, right? How many times, are you asking people to do things when you're not even connected with them? Maybe you're in another room from somebody else. So you're doing the doing, you're doing the asking, but you're not really getting the response, again, the result you're looking for, because you're not in the same room, you're disconnected. Maybe they don't hear you, and so you ask multiple times, and so now you start to get frustrated, right? So this is why it's so important to really start with that beingness piece. So again, I'm like, okay, result, this is obviously like the action I get to take, which is making the ask. Who do I get to be prior to making the ask to create the result I want to create? So it is being present, it is being connected, it is thinking of like, oh, how do I get to be fun and joy in my ask in order to create the result so that I meet her where she's at, right? A 4-year old, right? How does it get to be fun and gamify or something that's going to become exciting, right? So again, how do I get to be with her? I get to be connected. I get to be loving. I get to be enrolling. I get to be joy. I get to bring the excitement, right? To meet her where she's at so that when I make the ask and how I go about making the ask, the result is it's a yes, and she wants to partake and help me clean up, right? So something that I have done and what I invite you to do to develop the practice of looking at the beingness is looking at it from, reversal. And something that I started, well, it's probably been a while now, actually. I'm trying to like, what, long ago, but it probably has been, yeah, like maybe a good year or so. I had this epiphany, right? As I'm going through my, daily to-do list of what I'm up to that day. And I had this, again, the light bulb moment, like, wait a second, I'm in this whole like have to be piece. It's like, wait, who do I get to be in order to take the action here to create the result I want to create? And this is where I started integrating this into my morning routine. So I will go through my day and look at, okay, what am I up to today, right? So for example, a day that is more that I'm with clients, right? It's a client day. So I ask myself, right, who do I want to be on these calls with my clients so that they get the result, which is the breakthrough, that they get their results, right? So who do I get to be on that call? And I get to be loving. I get to be interruptive. And depending on who, and depending on what call it is, or for which client, I make it to show up in a different way. And by by setting that intention ahead of time, my calls have become so much more impactful, so much more easier. I've create less prep. I am taking less notes. Like I've just noticed, right? Like my quote unquote productivity go up, and even the results of my clients go up because of that powerful intention of my beingness that I'm set before working with my clients. And so I would love for you to drop in the comments and share, like, first of all, that like, yeah, I take this on. I'm there. I want to try this out. And just like even in the chat, just declare like tomorrow I'm committed to being this, right? And kind of look at look at this formula that the B do you have. And like I said, sometimes it's easier to start with the end in mind. So okay, again, I want this result. So I get to take this action. Who do I get to be? Right? To take the action to create that result. And just, I might even say like rewatch this video, right? To really get through the concept of, again, what is the result that I want? What's the action that I get to take to create the result? Who do I get to be? Right? To take the action to create the result. And you'll notice, like, I love to hear from you what you're noticing, experiencing. Like, just take yourselves on for the next week, right? For the next 7 days, right? Create that time in your morning routine as you're setting yourself up for success to go through your day and really ask yourself at each part of your day, who do you get to be at each of those moments? And let me know. I love to hear from you. Like, what are you noticing? Are you noticing a big difference? Are you noticing that it's challenging to determine the being piece? Like I said, it is not necessarily something that we are taught. This is something that I'm learning, I'm discovering, I'm unpacking, and I'm constantly like really in place of discovery and curiosity of like, okay, how do I get to be in this situation, right? And then once you do it, it starts to become that automatic, right? It's building that new neural pathway, right? Building that way out, right? With that intention, that wanting to make more powerful results, transformation, connection, love, joy, whatever it is that you want to create in your life right now, is looking at that ways of being to show up. All right. Thank you for jumping on, tuning in, and unpacking the Be Do Have with me. And I will see you guys all tomorrow. Have a good night. Bye.